brothers and sisters in the Sangha, Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim.
I'm so pleased to be here to introduce my close friend, respected Dhammachari Saddharaja. So Saddharaja is from England. He is based in Cambridge, and he is a very senior order member in our Sangha. I can say a lot about Saddharaja, but I don't have that much time to talk about him. I will introduce him in very shortly. Uh, Saddharaja, Saddharaja loves India. Saddharaja passionate about Babasaheb's works. He is passionate about Babasaheb's vision, and he does visit every year. I think since many years, and he has been working with different activities in India. Recently, he has started new Buddhist center uh, in and yeah, I mean he just loves Baba Sahib's vision and his works. And whenever we talk about India and Baba Sahib, he once he said he would like to die in India. So you can imagine his passion about India and Baba Sahib's works. Um, so that's all really. So you'll know more about from his talk. He's going to talk about Baba Sahib. So you'll get more idea about his study and his understanding about Baba Sahib. So I would like to invite Saddharaja to give a talk. So please, Saddharaja, you can start now.
Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim. I'm so happy to be joining you here today with this talk. I feel very honored to be here. I can't see you all, but I can imagine you all looking at me at the moment. And what a wonderful feeling that is. Sue Dipta has invited me to give this talk, and well, it's a real privilege for me to do that on this very auspicious occasion. So it is an important and auspicious occasion because on the 14th of April 1891, 129 years ago, Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar was born. He was born in Mahu in Madhya Pradesh in a cantonment district, and these days, appropriately, that town is called Dr. Ambedkar Nagar. Probably when he was born, it was just a very, very ordinary occasion, another child being born in India. But of course, we know now that for the world, for India and for the world and for Buddhism, it was an incredibly important occasion. So speaking about Babasaheb is a very happy task for me. I'm a Westerner living in Cambridge in the UK. I regularly come to India and have been coming for 17 years. And I love India. I love the Indian Sangha. And well, Babasaheb is my teacher. I have his picture on my shrine, along with the Buddha and Bhante Sangharakshita. These are my three teachers. These are my gurus. Babasaheb is particularly important to me, and I bow down to Babasaheb and his great example. So I'd like to speak to you today about why he's so important for me and for you. And I'd like to express my appreciation of him at this critical time, because we are living in a very particular and critical time in the world. So I'm living in the lockdown here in Cambridge in the UK. I live in a men's community in Cambridge, and we are living in lockdown. You are living in lockdown in India, and this will carry on for quite a few weeks yet. The world is living in lockdown at the moment. You're living in your villages, in your towns, in your cities. You have to stay indoors. You can't go out. So much of the world is living like this right now. It's quite an extraordinary situation. We are in the grip of the coronavirus. It's changing our lives and how we are existing at the moment. Some people, many people around the world are finding it very, very challenging. Many people are becoming ill with the virus. Many people, unfortunately, are dying. Recently, we've had as many people as 1,000 people a week dying in the UK. Many people are suffering financial hardship, and they're even in danger of, in India, they're in danger of starvation. Many people are suffering from anxiety, from isolation, and they're suffering from boredom as well. Our lives are seriously restricted. We can't get about like we normally would do. We can't travel. We can't visit friends and relatives. And many of us cannot go to work. We can't even visit the Buddhist center. Thank goodness that we have got online activities and we can use those. They're so important. Many people are worried and anxious about the future. The future seems very uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. It's a very challenging time for the whole of the human race. Perhaps the most challenging time in our whole lives. At the same time as all this, it's Babasaheb's birthday. It's there, and we want to celebrate it. It's so important to us. His existence, what he did with his life, who he was, has had such a big impact on our lives. So we want to celebrate that. How do we do that during the lockdown situation? How can we give proper salutations to this great Buddhist, this great social revolutionary when we're in lockdown? How do we do it? It can appear to be so difficult. And what's for sure is that we can't do it in the normal way that we usually do. This year is different. So my message to you today is that we can salute and celebrate him this year, and we can do that very fully in new and creative ways. So I'd like to explore that a bit with you. And I think there's primarily two approaches that we can use. There's the practice of reflection, and there's practice itself. Reflection and practice. So I'm going to talk about that as this talk progresses. So Babasaheb was a great man by any standards. And this is one of the reasons why he's so important. You don't have to be a Buddhist to see his greatness. It's obvious to anyone who bothers to look. If you are a Buddhist, he's even greater. So the question arises, well, what is a great man or a great woman? How do we judge them? Well, I've got a little short list of a few obvious names of great men and great women that are generally recognized. And the first one might be Mahatma Jyotirao Phule, Nelson Mandela, the Dalai Lama, Rabindranath Tagore, Mother Teresa, Dr. Martin Luther King, Malala Yousafzai. So here's just a short list that I just thought of off the top of my head. So what's the criteria for greatness? So I did a bit of a research on this, and generally speaking, there seems to be 7 criteria for a great man or a great woman? First of all, they're great humanitarians. Yeah, they care about people. Secondly, they're revolutionaries. They change things forever. Thirdly, they may have received or been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Fourthly, they used skillful means and they were non-violent. Fifthly, they had personal courage. Sixthly, they promoted personal education for individuals. Seventhly and lastly, world history honors them. So in the case of Babasaheb, he meets all of those criteria and more, and more. In terms of him being a humanitarian, it's obvious that all his life he was concerned about others, especially the oppressed. And also he campaigned for the equality of women. He was a revolutionary. So witness the mass conversion of 1956, the DHAMMA revolution. He was definitely a revolutionary. As for the Nobel Prize, I am sure he would have been nominated for that had he lived longer. Unfortunately, he didn't live as long as he could have done. He might have done, but he would have been nominated. In terms of skillful means, there's no question. The 5 precepts, he advocated the 5 precepts as a moral path for individuals, for Buddhists, and for society. Personal courage, well, there are so many stories of his personal courage, too many to even mention, but I have to mention the famous Chowder Tank incident. He promoted education. He became educated mainly through his own efforts, but also some help. And he became highly educated, in fact. And he wanted that for all Indian people. So he set up schools, colleges, libraries, and universities. Finally, world history honors him. He is becoming slowly, as the decades go by, more and more and more well known. It's going to take time. Sometimes people feel frustrated that it's not taken more time, but it will get there eventually. It may not be in our lives. Personally, I cannot think of a greater man, greater person who has affected my life so fully, accepting that of the Buddha and also Bhante Sangharakshita. So this is one of the main reasons why he's so important. He was a great man by any standards at all. So how can we appreciate that while we're in lockdown? How do we really appreciate that? What can we do? So firstly, I think we can reflect on this. We can reflect on how lucky we are to have come across his teaching, yeah, and his example. So I've got a very well-known book here, The Buddha and His Dharma. Now I know that you in India, everybody in India has got a copy of this book. Everybody has a copy of this book. It's free, it's easily available. Well, now is the time to read and reflect on this book. You've got the time at the moment during the lockdown. So now is the time to read that book and reflect upon it. Reflect on his message in that book. Do we understand the message of that book? Now is a great time to ask that question and go more deeply. Secondly, in terms of practice, well, exemplification. Yeah, you and I need to exemplify his message at this time. Babasaheb himself was an exemplar, so we need to be exemplars like he was. We need to really be Buddhists. Buddhists are different. We need to walk our talk. We need to show our practice and his message through our actions in the way that we behave. So that means meditation. That means puja and ritual and devotion. We've got time on our hands at the moment. So it's a great time to go more deeply into the Buddha Dharma. So we can meditate. We've got more time to meditate longer or more times during the day. We can easily do the refuges and precepts and perhaps a daily puja. We can discuss the Dharma online or in groups. We can listen to great talks. There are lots of great talks on free Buddhist audio, including some talks from me actually, on free Buddhist audio. We've got the time, so we can go into the Dharma at this time. And that way we're actually practicing Babasaheb's message. So this time has been forced upon us. We don't have any choice, but we can see that as an opportunity for personal practice, which will deepen us, and it will also strengthen us in our order to do Babasaheb's work. So doing his work is the best way to celebrate his birthday, to do his work. So these are some of the practical ways each of us can unite in our reverence of Babasaheb. We can feel oppressed by the pandemic, which will make us reactive, or we can seize the opportunity, which will make us become more creative. Though the pandemic has thrown up this challenge for us, it's also a great opportunity. We always have a choice. Babasaheb is also important because of the Triratna connection. Of course, Babasaheb is very, very well known in so many areas across India and in many parts of the world because of the professions, the skills that he learned throughout his life. He's known in many, many fields. But he's also very, very well known and revered within Triratna. And this is because of who he was and what he did. We're inspired by his example. And we've got a special connection with him, and that connection comes through Bhante Sangharakshita. Bhante Sangharakshita is the link. Bhante Sangharakshita and Babasaheb met 3 times in their lives, and they trusted each other. They recognized that they were both on the same path. They were spiritual friends. In fact, Babasaheb originally suggested that Bhante Sangharakshita give him the refuges and precepts at the mass conversion in 1956. But Bhante Sangharakshita suggested actually it would be more fitting if we had U Chandramani do that, because he was a more senior monk. But the fact that Babasaheb asked him shows what deep trust existed between the two of them. And I think this is incredibly precious because, and we should never forget that, particularly as both Babasaheb and Bhante are no longer here. The Triratna Sangha is the Sangha of Bhante Sangharakshita and of Babasaheb. So this is another reason he's so important to us. I particularly noticed that this year, in January this year, I was touring around North Calcutta and out into rural West Bengal because I'm involved in a team who are starting activities in West Bengal and Calcutta. Everywhere we went, all the different little villages out and around, there are pictures, photographs, illustrations of Babasaheb. People wanted to meet us. They knew we were Buddhists. And the reason? Because of Babasaheb. He is always the link. He is the person that draws people into the Dharma in India. So how can we appreciate that while we're here in the lockdown? Once again, we've got a reflection and we've got some practice. So reflecting for you and me, well, we need to reflect that we are Triratna. That's you and that's me. The Triratna order, the Dharma Mitras, the Dharma Sayaks, we are all Triratna. We are a people. We are a living Sangha. And that really means something. We are daughters and sons of the Buddha. We are daughters and sons of Babasaheb. So we must carry on his Dharma revolution through our lives, through our actions. And we can reflect on this. In terms of practice, there's so much that we can do. We can cultivate compassion by reflecting on the wider situation. There is real hardship in India at the moment. There's financial worries for a lot of people. There's the health worries, people catching the virus and not surviving. It's a real concern. And we're living in lockdown, and many people are not in a position when they can earn enough money to get food. There's loneliness, there's fear, there's a lot of anxiety going on. So we must do something. In Triratna, we must try and help each other, and we must try and help the wider Indian people. We need to do this in a practical way, or we're going to become overwhelmed. So let's try and find ways of offering practical help. Perhaps you can give food. It might not be easy. You might have to find solutions to how to do that, given that we're locked down, but there will be solutions. Perhaps we can give money. Perhaps we can give medicine. Perhaps we can telephone friends, relatives, neighbors. Perhaps we can even look through the window and ask our neighbors, are you okay? Do you need anything? We need to find ways and find solutions for helping others. And particularly, we need to focus on the poorest people at the moment, because they're the ones who are going to experience the effects of the virus the most. For myself, I'm part of a team in Cambridge that's been raising money to send out to India. So we've been sending money to buy food. We're buying rice, lentils, cooking oil, and wheat flour. Nagamitra and others are distributing this in the Calcutta area and also in Nagpur. We're helping many hundreds of people, which is a very small amount of people in India, but it's something. It's something, we're doing something. Each of us needs to try and help in some practical way. And as a Sangha, we can connect with people. We can talk to others, talk to our neighbors, our friends, our relatives. And I particularly recommend that we listen to them. Listening is such an important practice. Allowing them to express their fears and concerns and get that out so that they're understood. We can also teach them meditation during this time. I know that Aditya Bodhi and many other people are teaching meditation online at the moment, and this is an incredibly skillful thing because many people are worried, they're anxious, they're concerned. This is a great time to learn meditation. If you don't know how to practice meditation, it's a great time to learn because that will really help with your mental states. So we can teach the Dharma and we can teach meditation online. And this can make a big difference to many people because many people in India at the moment will be open to the Buddha Dharma. Many people are desperate. And we can use the online forums to do this. We can follow up with people afterwards as well and offer friendship and encouragement. We can communicate the life of the Buddha, talk about the story of the life of the Buddha, and many people will be very open and it could change their lives. And it will give them the tools to live a more creative life. We could even do this with Ambedkarite followers who haven't embraced the Buddha Dharma. Perhaps they could embrace the Buddha Dharma if we teach it to them. Another reason Babasaheb is so important is because he was a Buddhist who revived Buddhism in India in modern times. He was a modern Buddhist. He set off the Dharma revolution in India and also within the world. Liberty, equality, and fraternity is a message for the whole world. At the time of Babasaheb, Buddhism had become quite stagnant in India. Monks and nuns were often not teaching the Dharma, not very active, not very inspired. And Babasaheb was quite critical of that. He was deeply inspired himself by the Buddha Dharma through his studies and his practice of it, which was very deep. He saw it as the right religion for mankind. And he also saw that it was a missionary religion in the true meaning of the word, meaning that it should be spread. It should be spread around as much as possible to anyone who wanted to hear it, anyone who wanted to practice it, regardless of their circumstances. He was also concerned that Buddhism was properly practiced, that it wasn't just some form of Hinduism. So often I've been traveling around India on trains or on planes over the last 17 years, and people talk to me and ask me what I'm doing, and I mention Buddhism, and straight away they say to me, oh yes, that's part of Hinduism. And I said, well, no, it isn't part of Hinduism, actually. But that's often the view, that's often what comes across. And Babasaheb was very, very thorough and very, very specific about this, which is why he drew up the famous 22 vows. Babasaheb got to the heart, very much to the heart of Buddhism. He and his followers would go back to the original teachings of the Buddha and would not be concerned about the politics of the Shravakayana or the Mahayana schools. He taught liberty, equality, and fraternity, which are deep Buddhist values. They are a message that the world badly needs at any time, but especially right now. So this is another reason why he's so important to us, because he revived Buddhism. So important, such a wonderful thing to do. So how can we appreciate that now while we're here in the lockdown? Once again, we've got a reflection and we've got a practice. And the reflection is that we are the Triratna Sangha. We have wisdom and compassion in our practice, and this must make a difference. We have that to some extent, and it makes a difference in body, in speech, and in mind. And at our best, our mindset in Triratna is a creative one that's based on the Buddha Dharma. And that should show in our activities, and it should show in our behavior. So that's something we can reflect on. Secondly, in terms of practice, there's a lot we can engage with at present in terms of our practice, which will also test our practice. It'll test my practice, it will test your practice. Particularly in the area of the family. Many of you are living in families now in India at the moment, and you're locked down together within the family. And this can be a wonderful thing, and it can also get very tense. Sometimes people are all living together, not able to go out or do very much. It can all get very tense, and tiny little irritating kind of behaviors that some of us might have might really start to build the tension up, and bad behavior can break out. Harsh speech can break out, or worse, under these conditions. So we have to creatively work against this with our practice. We need to practice patience, kshanti, maitri, love, karuna, compassion. And above all, we have to communicate with each other. If something is going on, some tension is building up, we need to talk about it. We need to communicate. And once again, I particularly recommend the listening practice. Really sitting down and really listening to what people are saying. I've spent many years working as a Mitra convener. I've been recently working in a mental hospital, and I also worked in a hospice in Calcutta. And I can tell you that everyone in those situations wished to be listened to. People valued being listened to in all sorts of different ways. Everyone appreciates being listened to. I certainly appreciate being listened to, and I hope that's what you're doing now. So our family can be a model of Dharma life if we want it to be, if we work together. It's like being on retreat at the moment with our family, but where it's been forced upon us. So we have to seize that opportunity. We can see the lockdown period as a retreat. We can do positive and creative things together, not just formal practice. Sudipta was telling me just before that him and his family are practicing ritual and devotion in the mornings, refuges and precepts. And this is a wonderful thing that you can do together as a family. And you can practice meditation and you can study the Dharma. However, there are other creative things that you can do as a family. You can have lots of fun. You can play music. You can sing songs. You can have dance. And I particularly recommend reading the scriptures, particularly some of the stories from the Jatakas, the life of the Buddha. You can even act these out and create your own little plays if you want to do that. So a family is an important place to practice at the moment. So I do recommend that. Another reason Babasaheb is so important is that we have a great deal to learn from him. We haven't learned everything yet fully that he has taught us. Babasaheb gave us three things in particular, and they're very, very deep. And the first of these was a Buddhist vision. He gave us a Buddhist vision. He also gave us a moral culture for society, and he also gave us true democracy. So he gave us a Buddhist vision. It was a Buddhist vision for everyone. It was a vision that anyone could practice, regardless of age, gender, caste, age, social status, and race. Babasaheb felt that anyone could benefit from the Buddha Dharma. The Buddha Dharma could be the religion of mankind. If more people knew about it, he felt they would convert, they would embrace it. He thought the Buddha Dharma should be spread around as much as possible, and that we in Triratna should be happy to do that. So that was one of the great things that he gave us. He also gave us a moral culture for society. Babasaheb was actually against the whole idea, the whole concept of God as being the center of the world, the center of the universe as he saw it. God at the center, and then mankind, human beings were not equal around in relation to God. He wanted human beings to all be equal and to have equal opportunity. So he embraced Buddhism as a religion without God. And he saw morality as the guiding principle for individual behavior and for the bringing together and the guidance of society. So going for refuge to the three jewels involves morality. It involves the 5 ethical precepts. And he saw the 5 precepts as the moral guide to any society. A remarkable, radical thought. Thirdly, Babasaheb gave us true democracy. He believed in democracy as a better system to govern a country. He felt it was better than dictatorship. He felt it was better than communism. He felt it was better than anarchy. Bhante Sangharakshita once said that democracy was not perfect, but it was better than all the other systems of government that mankind has devised. Today, India is the world's largest democracy, and all this came from Babasaheb. He drafted the Indian constitution and he wrote democracy into it. So this is another reason why Babasaheb is so important. He has so much to teach us, and we haven't fully learned that yet. Not completely. So how can we appreciate that while we're here in the lockdown period? And we can do that firstly through reflection. We can reflect. How would Babasaheb be responding to this crisis if he were here now? How would he respond? And we know that he would have responded creatively. It's interesting that 102 years ago, the great Spanish flu epidemic, world flu epidemic, was very much in India. And Bombay was the center of that. And at that time, a 27-year-old Babasaheb was professor of political economy in Bombay. So he would have seen at first hand this terrible, devastating illness, which killed 100 million people around the world. It killed between 12 and 17 million within India itself. So Babasaheb would have seen this, and he would have faced the situation, and he would have faced it in a creative way. So what we're going through now, he also went through something similar 102 years ago. So we must do this too. We must act creatively, because life is always uncertain. This is an insight reflection that we need to have, what we call a vipassana reflection. It's the reality of the world that we live in. It's the samsara. The samsara is imperfect, and there are always unsatisfactoriness. There's always unsatisfactoriness there, and that's the truth that we need to see. Sometimes this is a very challenging reflection for us to engage with, and we need to be in a positive mental state in order to be able to explore this and see this in more depth. This is why meditation and other Dharma practices are so important for helping us to develop that positive mental state. But it's a fact, it's the reality. It's a very actually creative and meaningful reality. It's what the Buddha taught us. Everything is conditioned. Everything born must die. Our own lives must eventually end in death. When we reflect on these deep truths, we know we must make our lives more and more meaningful. We can't waste time on frivolous things. We must make our lives meaningful. We must escape the wheel of life, the life of cyclic existence, and join the spiral path which leads to stream entry and eventually to Buddhahood itself. This is what Babasaheb wanted us to do. This is now an opportunity for us to make real progress with that. It's an opportunity that's been forced upon us right now, but it is here, and we must make use of it so that we can create a better world for others and for ourselves. So that's one reflection. In terms of practice, if we are making efforts to do this, we can never experience boredom, loneliness, or isolation, because our lives will be meaningful. We are being creative, and we will feel connected with each other, with the Sangha, and with the wider world. We will be living happily amid the uncertainty of these times. We will really be living out the Dhamma revolution. And the Dhamma revolution needs followers with insight. It needs followers with wisdom and compassion. We need to be moving towards insight. So thank you for listening to me today. I greatly appreciate the opportunity that Sudipta has generously given me to do this. I do appreciate it. I'm sending Maitri to you all out there, and every one of you, and we can send that to each other constantly throughout this period and for the rest of our lives. Please stay safe and please stay well. This challenging period will eventually pass, and we can achieve a lot while we are here, while it is here. We can achieve a lot with our practice. So a year from now, in April 2021, we can look back at this period as being a wonderful period of spiritual growth, as well as the more negative sides that we will have experienced. If it's possible, I would like to visit India again next year in 2021. If they'll allow me in, I can get a visa, I will come. And I would love to see as many of you as I can during that period. I love to meet the Sangha, whoever you are, wherever you are. And I've been coming for 17 years, and I hope to carry on coming for another 17 years. So if I'm in your area, please come and introduce yourself to me. And what I hope is that when we meet, we will not be meeting with any social distancing going on at all. So goodbye to you. Thank you. Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya.